Yeah, Homer led the league in tackles with 85. The deep ball for Darius Prince, and Philadelphia's on the board first.
On the draw, this is Bryson Allen. And Allen weaving his way all the way down to the 22. 10-yard line, 5. Mayfield, dancing all around. Throwing as far as he can throw it. Jump ball coming. Crazy stuff. Not this time.
And you want to be a wide receiver, you're going to have to take a little bit of a hit like that as Brown got him in that shoulder, but watch. Those are teeth.
Do we have a dentist on staff here?
All right. Very excited to have this next guest on today, the head coach of the Southwest Kansas Storm, and most recently before this, the head coach of the Dodge City. It's Conquistadors, correct?
Yeah, correct.
The Dodge City Conquistadors, Mr. Gary Thomas. Thank you for joining us today, Coach.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Looking forward to this. I mean, as you know, we've kind of been running through interviews with all the different AFL head coaches, but it's awesome to get all your guys' perspectives and all your different views on why you ultimately chose to join the league. I mean, obviously you had a job where, you didn't have to leave, but you chose to leave. So I got to ask, I mean, prior to this season, you were with Dodge City Community College, where you've had tremendous success bringing, players in and out to the professional ranks. I mean, what led you to ultimately follow your players on that path to the pros?
Well, there's a part of that story that's missing. After the 2018 season, I was, I'd been here 6 years. We had accomplished about as much as I felt that we could. And, it was just getting, stagnant. And so, but I, got at the time, had a wife and 2 kids and we were, ended up having a third one. But at the time I was up trying to decide what my next move was going to be, whether I wanted to try to move up and be an assistant, maybe at the Division I level, which I didn't necessarily like, having to go work for a stranger and not being able to control my hours and not being able to control my freedom. And then I thought, well, maybe I need to drop down and maybe be a D2 coordinator. I had opportunity to interview. I was potentially going to interview for an FCS coordinator job and an FBS coordinator job, and thought maybe that was something I'd want to do as well. My father-in-law uniquely approached me, and he had run a successful business here for 35 years and asked if we'd be interested in maybe buying him out so that he could retire. And kind of weighed that over for quite a few months and ended up making that decision. The dog's over here making noise. So I got out after the 2018 season, and I've been running my business here ever since. So there is a gap up until now where I was, essentially an average Joe for the most part, coaching youth sports for the kids and just being a guy that's around the house a little bit more and just a better opportunity family wise, less hours, more time to just be, a normal person for a little bit. And so that's really where I've been for the last 4 years before having this opportunity uniquely come up, which I think gives me a unique perspective on all of this as well, differently. And we'll get into it based on some of the questions you guys, sent me previously on why I even decided to do this. I actually wasn't looking to do it. If we're being completely honest, it wasn't like I was like, okay, I'm a college coach. I just finished my 20th year. I wasn't looking to make the leap anywhere. I was actually at the time looking to, potentially stay in college football and ended up, getting out all the way. But they actually approached me about the opportunity, and it wasn't something that whether they meant to or not, they actually they had approached me because they had let me know that they were going to make a change in the coaching staff and asked if I would consult on maybe the coaching search and some of the operational stuff that was going on inside. So that was kind of how it started, was just a consulting deal after they had already decided to make a change. And as it evolved, they ended up offering me the job. And then, I kind of weighed pros and cons and, could I put a staff together based on, how I wanted this to be formulated and how I wanted it to play out. And, ultimately, after being out a few years and, now I've got a 12-year-old that's in middle school, so I'm not as involved in the sports. And I've got a daughter that does, cheer and dance, so I'm not involved in that, other than being a spectator. And then I got a 3-year-old who's not ready for youth sports, who actually just turned 4 yesterday, but still not ready for youth sports. So it's kind of the timing, just, the planets aligned for this to be potentially a good fit. And that ultimately was what helped me make the decision to do it. I just felt like, you can call it what you want, but football's football. Whether you have, I did an interview for somebody else the other day, and they said, something about not having a background in arena football. Nobody started in arena football. Every single person that's in arena or indoor football got there by playing 11-man football. Now, there is a learning curve, and there is, there a lot of it is different, but nobody started in indoor arena football. So, and there's no reason someone can't evolve to. I was in 20 years in college and 17 as an offensive coordinator and play caller. I've done everything that you can do with an X and an O that they can do on an indoor field. Whether it's smash, 3-level reads, high-low concepts, curl flats, quick games, screens, now screens, slow screens, read powers, zone options, zone reads, you name it, it's been done. It's just a matter of, scaling it down to exactly what we want to do. The cool part is we get to start from zero on the terminology stuff and literally just create it exactly how I want it to be. And it's like walking into Spanish class, for the first day of your life, and except you get to make up the language, and everyone else gets to learn it. So it will be unique and fun and all the things that you would think it would be. But my evolution to get to this point was probably a lot different than a lot of others.
Yeah, Coach, you spoke about it, how you kind of left the junior college ranks because things kind of got stagnant a little bit. But when you coached in junior college, you coached against many great coaches, Jason Brown at Independence, Jeff Sims at Garden City.
Yep.
How would the level of competition when you see guys like Tyreek Hill, who played at Garden City, eventually go and become a superstar in the NFL, how many guys really make it out and how many guys kind of just revert back to their old ways that got them there?
Well, I coached against Tyreek. There's been some, Michael Gallups. There, in the 6 years I was here, we put I think 13 or 15 guys in the NFL. To be honest, probably everybody else did too. You're talking hundreds of NFL guys that have come through here in just a short amount of time. There is because of the way this conference is built, it's not just a bunch of guys, coaching a bunch of thugs and whatever you want to say. It's a bunch of really good football coaches, really good recruiters, junior colleges that are run like four-year schools with, cafeterias and dorms and all that kind of stuff. The success rate is, it's hard to say. And the reason I say that is, we were putting probably 30 to 35 guys a year that were placing at four-year schools to play football. And that's NAI all the way to Power 5. Some years we were putting 18 guys into Division I a year. Some guys it was 12, just depending on really how many sophomores. We were graduating a high percentage of guys. But it's hard. I can't give you an exact number on, okay, we started with 120 kids in X year, and 2 years later, how many of that 120, which again, if they were 80 of them were freshmen, how many of them actually graduated? I can't give you a percentage on that, but the perception of junior college is skewed because the stories that get out are the shock and awe stories. And I saw one of the questions that was a little further down the list was, last chance you, and when people think of junior college, they have this stigma and this thought in their head about what it's like. We've got doctors, we've got lawyers, we've got engineers. Last Chance U was shock and awe. It wasn't the boots on the ground, nuts and bolts. JB is, rough around the edges, and that's his persona. Sims is the same way. I mean, if you went out and hung out with those guys socially, and I've hung out with both of them socially, they're not like that. If you followed me around with a camera 7 days a week for 24 hours a day and took, my worst 7 minutes of each day, I'd look like, the other guys. I think every coach would. But they had a target audience they were going for. It was real life, but they didn't even splice things in chronological order. So they would pull something from 4 weeks ago and then plug it into a certain week because they liked how that fit. And for them, it was creating a television show by putting a puzzle together. And they chose human interest pieces as they saw it. And they chose some guys that maybe came from some places because that's what they wanted people to think junior college was like all the time. Did we have some of those guys? Sure, everybody does. But the reality is, probably 85 to 90% of the guys that were here are just, average guys trying to find a way out, get an education, re-recruited, whether they were, a little bit too small, a little bit too slow, a little bit came from a small town, didn't have a good GPA. We didn't specialize as much as maybe Garden and Independence did in bounce backs, coming back from four-year schools. Majority of our guys were straight out of high school, a couple transfers here and there, but that wasn't where we thought we could be the most successful. We felt the way our administration wanted us to build and the way we thought was the most efficient and successful model for us was to recruit 18 and 19-year-olds and bring them in, love on them hard, coach them hard, develop them, and try to put the best football program on the field every Saturday that we could. And I'm not saying the others were wrong because they had plenty of success in their own right. But there's a lot of ways to get it done at every level of football. And junior college is if you looked at our roster versus Independence versus Garden versus Butler versus Hutch versus Alabama versus Texas versus Georgia, I'd be willing to bet you that 90% of their kids are good kids as well. And I'll bet you there's 10% they wish they hadn't recruited, and they have all the resources in the world and millions of dollars to do a little bit better background checking than we do, on some of the guys that we recruit. Sometimes you just miss. You miss on athletes, you miss on personalities, you miss on character flaws, and you hope you're right more than you're wrong. And that's why we play the game, and that's why some years you win 9 and some years you win 5, and it's based on your successes and your misses, and that margin for error is real small at this level.
No doubt. I love how you put that. So I got to ask, obviously you said you were kind of out of football for a couple of years there. What are your thoughts on the return of the AFL and ultimately being a part of that return?
I think it's cool. When I got into this, it was way back in July. I was prepared to be in the CIF, and I was really actually looking forward to that. And again, I have a unique perspective on this because the thing is, if I win all the games next year, I'm still going to be here running my business for the next 10 or 15 years. And hopefully at that point, I'm fortunate enough to be in a position to retire. So this thing for me is about the community in a lot of ways, because I want it to be successful so that when I'm not in it anymore, it's still here. It's still a viable business model and successful so that I can watch it. It's unique to even have a product like this in a place like this. So the fact that we have one, we need to make sure that it can be successful in some fashion, whether that's financially or wins and losses or both, hopefully both. So one of the things when I was, Coach Vincent, who was here before me, he played for me in college. I coached him and his brother. So I had them both on my roster for about 3 straight years. So I wasn't involved, but I wasn't, too far removed and from watching games when I could and stuff like that. And Brandon actually worked for me here at the college for 2 or 3 years as my running back coach. So I would look across at the other teams and in my head, I'm going, all right, why is there only 2 guys? Like, why is there only 2 coaches? Sometimes they had 3. And I'm like, it seems to me, if you were looking to be really, really efficient at practice and on game day, being as efficient with the most sets of eyeballs that you possibly can to pick up and track tendencies and certain things, why would you not involve more people? And it wasn't until I was hired and they said that there was a salary cap on the coaching staff. And I was like, oh, the thing is, I'm not doing this for the money. And I understand, some people are, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But one of my things that I felt was important when I took over was building a staff of people that were similar to me. I didn't want to have to bring in a guy from out of town because now I got to house that guy. I got to pay that guy enough that, pay him enough that he's, not, begging for food, in between practices. I want to be able to treat guys right. So I was looking for highly qualified local guys that have jobs that this doesn't force them to provide for their families. That was an important aspect to me. And we'll get to the staff and all that stuff, I know, in further questions. But I thought in the CIF, I thought I could be successful. I thought I still had access to, in some ways better athletes than I felt like I was watching on certain games, maybe not all the games, but some of the games, and felt like I felt like I could out organize people. Being a play caller for so long, I think there's a lot of free yards that people didn't take advantage of. And I think there's a lot of play design stuff that could make a guy more successful where he doesn't have to be right all the time in his play call. And that was one of my goals. And that was what intrigued me about, the CIF. When the AFL thing kind of happened, and there was a lull there for, about 2 months where we went into a straight holding pattern, even in recruiting, because I'm going, I don't know, if I've got to recruit an Ironman, a guy that can score touchdowns and cover on the next play, that's different than a guy that specializes at wide receiver or specializes at safety, because there's some guys that literally don't carry over into both games. And you look at the IFL where and the CIF both, but you look at a 4-man secondary and you can get into 15 different coverages if you want to. Whereas if we're truly playing AFL rules, with a 5-man defensive box, there's only 3 guys on the back end. Now you're talking about 4 or 5 coverages. And I mean, that requires 2 different players, with a 4-man box in the CIF and the IFL, you've got, arguably 50 to sometimes, depending on how you want to skin the cat, 50 to 60% run game, which requires safeties to come downhill, more violent hits. I do think the AFL potentially is a safer game. I don't know that I've read some things that say the Ironman is a safer style of play. You'll never convince me of that. Just because I don't know how a guy that played O-line his whole life is safer turning around and rushing the passer after he just protected the quarterback, and vice versa with the secondary. But I think the CIF game, if you're a true tactician, the CIF IFL game is more interesting a little bit. And if we're being brutally honest, it's more similar to outdoor football. It really is. Because of the run and the pass and the multiple coverages, and you can disguise stuff. The AFL is, it's 85 to 90% pass game. The run game is, almost, nothing. It's what you want it to be. But, and I understand the fan aspect of that, and they want scoring and they want it going back and forth. They want it 80 to 78. And if one guy gets a stop, he wins the game. And that's okay. And that's fine. It is what it is. But the cool part that I think bridges that gap between the other one maybe being a little more interesting from a coach standpoint, maybe not I don't know that the fans really care one way or the other. But from a coach's standpoint, at least you're potentially doing it on the biggest stage that's out there. I think that's what bridges that gap for me, going, okay, well, it's, potentially less interesting from a schematic standpoint for me but hey, let's go do it on TV. Let's make it cool.
Yeah, so Coach, your quarterback Caden Walters, you had the opportunity to coach him in college, and I'm sure you've seen a huge maturity change in him from the time he entered college to now. What are some ways he developed both as a man and as a player over the years?
So we had a really good string of quarterbacks here. We were very fortunate. And again, those are the guys that don't end up on Last Chance U. I think we had 3 straight that were 4.0 students. One's went on to start at the FBS level, and he's an Army Ranger. We had one that was a 4.0 student, and I don't even know what he's doing now, but I guarantee he's doing something because he was crazy smart. And then Caden was also a 4.0 student in college, and comes from a great family. His dad was just in my house last night for my 4-year-old's birthday party, and so I've known him and his mom, his dad and his mom for quite a while. But Caden, Caden is a lot of things. He's one of the toughest humans you'll ever run into, and I know that because one year we were not very good at offensive line, and I've seen him almost die multiple times because we couldn't protect him good enough. And he's one of the most competitive people you'll ever run into. You could play pickleball, racquetball, softball, football, darts, and he will do everything that he can to beat you. He's highly intelligent, as we already talked about. And I felt that, with him still being in the IFL and being about, the right age, but having experience, he was almost the perfect guy for me to target, in that, I had access to him because of the relationship, giving him an opportunity to, maybe play on a little bit bigger stage, and potentially play too. Last year he was backup, and so for both of us, I think it ended up being a mutually good fit, because I know with him, the thing is, if you look at how he throws the ball, he can spin it as good as anybody. But his mechanics are really probably built more for the outdoor game than they are the indoor game. He's not a quick whip guy. He's a little bit longer on the back end, but he's got as good an arm strength as anybody you'll run into. He throws as good of a deep ball as anybody you run into. The thing is, where he's maybe slow mechanically here, we can fix because he's smart enough to be able to go where he needs to go with the football. So that, and those are, I wouldn't tell you anything that I haven't, told him to his face, because we have that kind of relationship. But, as he's matured, he ended up leaving us and ended up playing up at, University of Sioux Falls, and was up for the Harlan Hill Trophy and, the D2 Heisman, what have you. And I even had a chance to go watch 2 of his games. I went and watched a home game when he was at Sioux Falls, and then I ended up watching one of his playoff games his senior year. And, I don't know that he matured, because he was a mature, 19-year-old. He just was the same kid, highly competitive, tough as nails. Pressure didn't bother him. He's probably a lot calmer now that he's, 25, 26 years old than he was, back then, and just being a rambunctious, 18 and 19-year-old like we all were. But he's at a point that he also has bigger goals. So he's chasing a dream, and he understands he's on a clock age-wise. I think he has I know he has ambitions of playing outdoor football again at some point in time. And the unique thing about what I'm trying to put together, and I've used this in my recruiting pitch, to a lot of guys, and I say pitch like I'm a car salesman, but I'm not, is, like I said, if I win all the games, the day after the championship game, if we're fortunate enough to even be remotely close to that, I got to go to work on Monday, because I got a job, so let's not make this about me. I can't go anywhere. I'm landlocked in this deal. So let's make it about you. Let's turn this into a junior college. Where can we bring dudes in and pump them out? I evaluated every IFL player, every NAL player. I've evaluated easily 70 4-year colleges, seniors, based on the parameters that I've set for building my roster, on how I want it to look. And, not that a lot of guys in the IFL can't play. I just don't think a lot of them fit exactly what I was looking for. But one of the things that I wasn't actually looking for was I didn't necessarily want to bring someone in that had been playing 6-7 years in the IFL or one of the other leagues and then bring him into the AFL. And not for any reason other than I wanted to be a little bit younger, and I wanted guys that project, and I have nothing against a 6'3", tough as nails offensive lineman that probably could help me win, but he projects nowhere. So I need to recruit guys here that I project playing at a different level than here by their frame, by their work ethic, by their personal life, by the things that I want to run on offense and defense that I think that they can do well. And some of that is even above and beyond what they did in college, because it's about putting them on this stage and having them, create a new recruiting tape, that allows them to maybe get back outside, make a little more money and play this game until somebody tells you that you can't. So I've chosen to take that route into, like I said, we opened the conversation with, JUCO being kind of a negative connotation. But essentially that's, and I think some of the other, franchises want to do that as well and are putting an emphasis on that. But sorry, dogs. But for me, it's true. I mean, like I said, I'm not going anywhere. I mean, I'm not going to chase jobs. I'm not going to sell my house and pull my kids out of school and chase jobs around the country. I'm at where I'm at. I'm going to do it for, however long I'm going to do it, 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. I don't know. It'll depend on how successful we are and how fun it is. And how much, my family time allows me to continue to do it. But as long as we can do it, let's find guys that legitimately have the ability to project to the XFL, USFL, whatever that turns into, NFL, CFL, whatever. Because a lot of the guys that we are bringing in have had those opportunities, and they're dropping down, and hopefully we have the ability to get them back up.
That makes perfect sense. That seems to be the growing theme across the league, that many teams are targeting players that have been there and are trying to get them back there. Right. So for fans that may not be familiar with your coaching background, what is your experience in the indoor and arena football leagues?
Just a fan like they are, probably just better at dissecting the X and O's than they are. But ultimately I have none. I've been to a Chicago Rush game back when I coached in Chicago. I've had, Omar Smith, who was in the AFL Hall of Fame, played for the San Jose SaberCats. He was one of my wide receivers in high school when I was a quarterback. One of my former assistants who played 5 years in the NFL, played for the Bengals and played for the Saints. Once he was done with the NFL, or vice versa. Once the NFL was done with him, he dropped down and played in the AFL back in its heyday, played for the Tampa Bay Storm and might have played for somebody else. So I have some exposure there. Have I ever coached it? No. But again, that goes back to, there's not a route concept that you can put together that I haven't seen, tried to execute, aren't familiar with. Same in the run game. But yeah, as far as my exposure, probably less than some fans in some aspects of it, just because I didn't have a chance to enjoy it like they might have, being that I was, busy working and doing other stuff,
So, Coach, last year for Southwest Kansas, it was kind of a lot of turmoil. There was a lot of the fans weren't really involved. The stands weren't packed. How do you plan to bring a culture to Southwest Kansas that's kind of sustainable for all the fans to be involved? And what do you picture the fan experience looking like in 2024?
Well, the thing that I can control the most directly is obviously the product that we put on the field. And I think that's the biggest. The biggest thing is people don't want to go watch losing anything. So if we can control how successful we are, that's probably step one in the right direction. The fan experience, that's the thing about the indoor, any version of indoor football, is it's got to be I don't even want to say 50-50. It might be 65% fan experience versus what is actually happening on the football field because of the sales aspect. You know, when I look at this, and I've even explained it to some of the players, it you know, put yourself in an owner's shoes, you know, and let's look at your revenue streams. You know, how do you as a franchise make money? Well, you have game day, which is limited. That's a limited thing, and everybody's got a different setup. You know, whether you're in Phoenix and you're paying $50,000 a night to rent your arena, or whether you're in Dodge City and paying a fraction of that to rent your arena. But that's a cost. You know, how much of the ticket sale are you actually getting? How much of the cut of concessions are you actually getting? Other than that, you know, on game day, that is a limited earning opportunity. And some people, to be honest, might be losing money on game day. You've got payroll, you've got insurance, you've got first responders, you've got announcers, you've got referees, payroll. I mean, you have everything that you could possibly. There's a lot of money going out the door on game day. You know, so I think a lot of teams in other leagues even are losing money on game day. So your next one is probably apparel. You know, which, you know, the markup on a t-shirt is pretty good. The markup on a sweatshirt, a beanie, a hat, or whatever. But you can only sell so many of those things before you got to sell a lot of t-shirts to make, you know, the ends meet, you know. So the third is the corporate sponsorships and getting your community involved. And that comes with, again, putting a good product out there, you know, making them feel like, you know, they're getting something for their money. You know, one of the things I've explained to a lot of people is, you know, just because we're going to the AFL too doesn't mean we're going to get newer and bigger sponsors. We probably have what we have, and we can cultivate that by putting a better product out there. But you know, if you take a highly successful contractor here in town, let's say, and you know, not even picking anyone specific, but let's say they're doing pretty well for themselves, and they're already sponsoring, you know, $5,000. You know, do you go to them and say, well, look, we're going to the AFL, we're going to be on TV, you know, we need you to sponsor $15,000. If I'm that guy as the business owner, I'm going, well, so what are you going to do? Put my logo on TV and what? I'm going to sell houses, build houses for people in Philadelphia? What do I care if I'm TV? You know, I can't go out of this area and build, you know, so we're kind of at where we're at in what we can do. Now we can cultivate that, and our area is pretty spread out. So, you know, we've got to actually get out of our area and get out of our comfort zone a little bit and cultivate more relationships. You know, but that's the business side of it a little bit. So, you know, getting back to the heart of it, the fan experience is huge. And what I've, you know, pitched to the ownership is we need to find people that are coming to games that don't enjoy football. You know, we need to make this as much not about football as it is about football. Now, do I have the time and the energy to, you know, conduct a 3-ring circus and win all the games? No, probably not. You know, there's got to be other people involved. You know, I'll take care of, you know, the roster development, and I'll take care of, you know, practicing and putting what we put out there on Saturday, and I'll take ownership of it, good or bad. You know, but, you know, they've got to be responsible for that game day experience, which I think everybody, you know, realizes now is not necessarily just about football, you know. And I've talked about, you know, what if we hire, you know, there's bigger bands and stuff that, you know, in the area that, you know, that time of year maybe aren't doing anything. What if we did a concert at halftime? You know, now you get, you know, maybe you get an extra 1,000 people in there that are actually coming to see that person at halftime because they're not necessarily, you know, football fans. We need to get non-football fans into the stands. And that's where I think, you know, the fan engagement is important. I think everyone will admit that. And I think you guys probably being involved in how you are is everyone's, you know, got to accept that. And not only accept it, you've got to be able to cultivate and make it into something that makes all of these viable businesses for the owners, or quite frankly, they're going to disappear.
Man, that's a scary proposition there at the end, but definitely 100% rings true. I mean, honestly, we have to support all these teams, otherwise they'll all go away. I mean, at the end of the day, the fans pay the bills. I mean, when you look down at the bottom line there. So I wanted to kind of transition a little bit and want to talk about your coaching staff, who you've brought in so far to kind of help you out there. I know you said it's pretty limited as far as the arena football staffs, but who have you brought in to assist you this season?
Well, the one thing I wanted to make sure is that before I even accepted the job, that I could build a local staff, because I didn't want to be dependent on somebody, that I didn't know very well or at all. And number two, somebody that was going to cost me more money and take away from how I wanted to build the thing. So the first person that I targeted was Jason Sheck. He used to coach with the Dodge City Law on the defensive side. Him and Coach O'Neill from Salina worked pretty closely together on the defensive side before that kind of whole thing went sideways. Neither of them had anything to do with that, but that's a long story for another day. Coach Sheck was the defense coordinator at the high school when I was at the college. High level football coach, great teacher, great communicator. He was fortunate enough at one point he got a principal job in our district here. If you're an administrator, they don't allow you to coach. So he had to make a decision between moving up in his career and doing the thing which probably got him into education in the first place, which was coaching. So he had to give that up. He's now, taking on an even bigger role in the district, but now that he's kind of been doing that a couple of years, he has the ability to kind of do this after hours. So he was a big get for me in that he closes that gap immediately on the indoor aspect of it. For things that I might not be as familiar with. I mean, I've been doing this now for 4 or 5 months. I'm pretty familiar with it, but he knows a lot of things that he'll bring to the table, and I'm just going to I'm a big believer in hire people that that you trust and do a good job and get out of their way. I'm not a micromanaged kind of guy. I'm not going to be in his ear. Just you do you, be good at it, and he will be, and I'll handle what I can handle. I'm going to give you the resources. I'm going to try to score points. You figure out how to stop somebody a couple times, and let's go have a beer. My secondary coach and my assistant head coach is Pat Callahan. He was my defensive coordinator for the last 11 years. And every year that I was a head coach, he was with me. We had top defense in the conference 2 or 3 times in my tenure there. We won a lot of football games together. He's kind of semi-retired, chose to stay here in town when he did that. And so he's still here. He does a great job with the technology aspect of it. He'll do great at getting the film cut up, getting tendencies. Probably be upstairs, and he'll be in probably both of our ears and communicating when he sees fit. He's forgotten more football than I'll probably ever know. So he was a huge asset getting him back in the fold, and that conversation took about 2.5 minutes, and he was like, "I'm in." Coach Gibson, who was actually with the Storm last 2 years, I hired him back in 2014 as my defensive line coach at the college. So he was with me 4 years there. He's still there now with the college. He left town for a little bit, came back. And I mean, he's a phenomenal football coach, great motivator, high accountability guy. He's one of those guys where, he'll just get all the way up in you. And then when he's done, you'll be like, thanks. I kind of needed that. Whereas if somebody else did it, you'd be like, man, what's your problem? He just, he has that way, and people respect him for how he operates. So keeping him involved was a big deal for me. But that gives us 3 coaches on the defensive side of the ball. Myself, I'll be on the offensive side of the ball. I'll handle the quarterbacks and, play calling and all that kind of stuff. Pat Williams, who's our general manager now, he's a defensive coordinator actually at a high school down the road, about 15 minutes away, but he lives here in town. Been involved with football for a long time. We're going to put him with the offensive line. He also has a job that is kind of unique. He was in law enforcement for a long time, and he's retired, but has a new job that requires him to kind of move around a little bit. Not far, but he's on call all the time. So I thought that was the best place to put him because of his structured background. I think he'll do well there with those guys. And a lot of the things about this level is, guys aren't coming here to, learn how to kick slide. They're coming here to put out the best version of themselves. So it's, we don't have to be true technicians. There's going to be things that we need to tweak and clean up and stuff like that. But we're not teaching from square one. So I thought he was the perfect guy with his structure, just to be with those guys. His offensive linemen they're just wired different. Wide receiver coach is Vaughn Van Dam. He's the wide receiver coach at Garden City Community College. Vaughn's played in the CIF. He's, been some other places. For him, I really wanted to get him involved. I think he's a high level recruiter. And I think we'll both be able to positively affect each other. I think I've got a lot of knowledge to give. And I think that will probably translate and help him in his career in the outdoor game. But he's also going to bridge the gap, I think, for me too, on the offensive side of the ball of, hey, coach, I did this for 5 years in indoor. This is something that everybody's doing. It's a staple. We need to have this in. Here's why. Helping bridge the gap for the things that everybody's doing because it's just the right way. It's tried and true. It's been done forever. We did it because someone else did it, and me not wanting to be the same as everybody's been because that's what everybody's done. I want to reinvent this thing a little bit too. I want to do things that other people aren't or saying that you can't, for two reasons. I'm brave enough to do it. I guess if they fire me, I still got a job. So I'm willing to break the mold of, this is how arena football has been played since the beginning of time. And this is why I concede that there's certain things that have to be done a certain way. But I also think there's a bunch of things people haven't tried, for whatever reason. And we're going to, good, bad, or indifferent, we're going to try them. And we're going to see if we can put pressure on people in different ways. And that we actually might get I got 2 volunteers that probably will help. I might even get an intern, a younger guy from the community that wants to get into football. And, so we might be looking at, potentially, bringing on an intern that just, wants to learn and do some certain things. But one of my former players, he's in the ag industry and he's about 15 minutes away. He wants to come on and volunteer. One of my older guys that's retired, he volunteered for me at the college. He wants to be involved. I'm not just going to can't take the whole world. Everyone's like, oh, AFL. Hey, I want to get on TV and I want to do this. And, but I do think that, I'm a believer in look, okay, building a team is an emotional part too. There's days when I'm going to be a dick, pardon my language, but just to be a dick, because I want the guys to be, the worst thing that they can do is commiserate together. If they go in the locker room and like, man, coach is an asshole. And, I don't even know who's watching, so I don't know if I can say that. But, coach is just on one today. I don't want them commiserating with each other. I need to force that group to their position coach so they can build that relationship. And there's going to be days where the position coach needs to have a bad day and have a bad day on purpose, whether it's warranted or not. Sometimes it is warranted if guys are slacking and what have you, but that's going to drive them back to me, as the head coach, and I can create those bonds and those relationships as well. But I believe one of my philosophies, and that's why I needed to keep it in town, because it was a monetary thing for me. I couldn't pay a guy, an expert, a big name guy, whoever, a guy that's been around the arena league forever. I couldn't pay him probably what he demands to come to town and still accomplish what I want to accomplish, which is having a guy at each position, having a lot of eyeballs involved, and just being as efficient. Let's divide and conquer and be as efficient of an operation as we can, and see if that goes somewhere. I mean, I'm not taking away from people that do it a completely different way because, they have to because of their circumstances. There's plenty of guys out there that are good. I mean, I don't think there's any bad football coaches that anyone's hired that I can tell, but I don't know a lot of them either. So there's a lot of different ways to do it, but I just felt this was maybe the best way, for us. Dodge being different than some other places. There's nowhere to hide here. We got a town. We're not a tiny town, but we got 35, 40,000 people here. But when somebody goes off the rails, the entire town's going to know about it by Tuesday. So for us, it's about bringing in, highly skilled, but really, really good people. Because the community, it all, comes back full circle. But, you talk about community involvement. Nobody wants to get involved with a thing that they people that they don't like. I saw that guy at Walmart and he was this, and I saw that guy at Home Depot. So it is about community relations, which leads to ticket sales, which leads to sponsorships, which leads to winning, and everything will come back around. But so I've been evaluating character as much as I have, talent and projections and all that stuff as well, because this place needs to operate a little bit different than maybe some other places. There's, like I said, there's less places to hide a guy, and the fact is, I'm fortunately, blessed to be in a place in my life where the wins and losses aren't going to define me either. There's no pressure on me to bring in a guy with a sketchy background because I think he helps me win one or two more games. I just don't have to go down that road, so I've chosen not to. And I've told almost every guy that I've recruited, like, look, I got a wife, I got kids, I got a job, I got my own problems, but I'm not going to bring them to practice and put them in your lap. And the commitment I'm making to you as an individual is I'm going to do everything I can to not bring other players. If our goal is to truly bring you in and get you out of here and send you somewhere else, then I need to surround you with guys where their personal life doesn't spill into your lap when it's time to come to work. And, let's bring in guys that are like-minded, hardworking, ambitious, and goal-oriented, and let's go. Let's see where it goes.
I love that attitude, Coach. I love the staff. I'm so happy my boy Rod Van Dam is back on board. We were talking about how Caden took a lot of sacks when he was in college with the offensive line. Mm-hmm. I believe games are won in the trenches. You see in Colorado with Shady Sanders, how many sacks he's taken.
Yep, for sure.
When you look at the salary cap this year, does it make it easier with the type of offensive line that you're able to build, and what's your offensive line looking like so far?
That might be the place that I feel actually the most confident. We've signed the one we released the other day was Desmond. Desmond's a guy, Desmond Bland. He was a starting center last year for San Diego. I knew about him back in high school. I had one of his high school teammates played for me here at the college, who went on to be a big time receiver at NIU. And Desmond was down at Arizona Western, and I knew him when he was down there. He had actually considered transferring here at one point in time. So we had not a great relationship, but, somewhat of a relationship. We knew who each other were, so getting in contact with him was pretty easy. He went on and played at West Florida with DeQuan, Bailey Brown, who we signed, who played for me here, and they were friends. So the whole thing kind of came about pretty quick. But the thing is, again, I talked about projections. When I talked to Desmond about that, he was like, man, he goes, well, you're talking to the wrong guy. He goes, I'm not, 6'6", 6'7", 6'8". I don't project. And I said, well, you do, because they moved you to center last year. And I don't know if you guys have take a deep dive into his film. I'm not so sure he's not the best center playing football. He's a freak of an athlete, a freak of a specimen. Go watch just the 5-6 plays that we picked out to put on that film for him. He's doing high level stuff. And that was 6 plays out of 2 games that I randomly chose. He's the centerpiece to this whole thing. He's a guy that can quarterback the whole thing from his position. He's a great communicator. He's ambitious. I think he's got a new lease on life being moved inside and really wants to do well. He's not a fat guy. He's a big, lean, muscular, athletic dude. And we signed, we're very close to having the paperwork back on 4 other guys. Until I get the paperwork back, I'm not going to release any of those guys, but all of them, played somewhere. All of them played FBS football. A couple of them played Power 5 football. A few of them played in the AFL last year. And then I've got a list of about 60 seniors that I'm working on, college seniors, that is, that I've got targeted. But those are guys that are probably going to be anywhere from December to March guys, depending on if they want to go through their pro day and take their chances on, whatever. But I think with the nucleus of the 4 or 5 that we're going to have in the boat, there's less pressure on us to get one of those. And I see a lot of teams, philosophically, I've just been, my first notion was, wow, we're behind. We've got about 13 to 15 guys signed. But again, they were strategic. They were guys that I handpicked. Agents calling left and right, emails getting blown up. And the more I evaluate, I'm like, man, I just don't know if the guy's a good fit for what I want to do. And what I don't want to do is bring a guy in. I don't want to feel the pressure to bring a guy in that I'm not comfortable with on the football field because everybody else is doing it. But I also don't want to be the guy March 15th that has 12 roster spots open either. So I'm trying to walk that fine line of building the roster where I'm not desperate in March, but I also don't want to be, and I fully acknowledge, I mean, the commissioners told us, they're like, hey, sign 35 guys. Every time a better guy shows up, cut one of those guys. And I'm like, man, that's not me. I'm not a dirty businessman. I'm not going to do that. I'm not gonna cut a guy before he ever puts his boots on the ground here in Dodge City and has a chance to earn the job. So I'm not gonna sign a guy that I don't think can compete for a job here realistically. And I'm not even 100% sure that I'll bring in 35. If a guy I'm not in love with on film, I'm not going to bring him in because my numbers say that I can. If I know that I'm going to bring in extras, I don't know if a guy's going to get hurt during camp. I don't know if a guy's going to get a USFL contract, 2 weeks into it or during camp or whatever. I have to protect myself against those things as well. But I don't know that, bringing in 35 just because they say I can, in all honesty, I've seen some guys sign with some places and I'll background check them a little bit and I'm like, man, I think they're just filling a roster spot. They can't possibly think that guy is going to compete for a job in what we're going to face, potentially not only with each other, but, if we have, non-conference games or, potentially trying to build yourself to a championship. So we've been slow playing a little bit and been very strategic, but offensive line is one that I feel pretty confident about. I'm trying to be, other than Desmond, the only one we really talked about, trying to be long, like dumb long. People talk about, oh yeah, he's 6'4", he's a good size. 6'4" is little to me. I want 6'7", 6'8" guys. Let's be long. Let's take away the inches and the mouse screens and the quick game. Let's change the angles that the quarterback's got to throw at. Let's affect some things because it's hard to get home at this level. And that's the thing. There's a lot of guys, sitting and feeling, wow, he's 6'2", he's 250, great pass rusher. Good for him. Unless he's a magician, it's hard to get to the quarterback in 2 seconds. The ball is coming out so fast that if I can't get home, I might as well be long, and see if I can't get some balls batted down, see if I can't get in some throwing lanes. And our basketball coach here a few years ago, who's a really good friend of mine, he used to always have 2 7-footers on the basketball team. And they'd be, 7'1", 7'2", and sometimes I'd go watch him play in the preseason. I'm like, man, hey, you realize that guy's good, right? And he goes, yeah, he's 7 foot though. He goes, if I put that guy in the game, in the key, he's probably going to get me 8 defensive boards. But anything inside of 8 foot, he affects the shot. And, most guys are comfortable with their shot, but when I affect the trajectory of their shot, now that guy that's 7 foot affects the game. So, if I can do that with some sort of pass rush, and I know I've got to be great at those. That's, the one thing we don't have yet, which is going to be, I think, the biggest factor for all of us, is the substitution rules. Once we get those, I think everyone can that's the other reason I'm shocked everyone's signing people so fast is, you don't know how many snaps that guy's taking yet. You don't know how long he's in the game, out of the game, and all those other things. So the way I look at it is the nose has to be special, like special. I know a lot of people talk about the specialists on defense, and in the old days you got 2 of them, and most of the time they were the corners. I'd rather have mine at nose. If I can affect the game up the middle and force the quarterback off of his spot one way or the other, I may not get home off the edge, but if I can push the pocket vertical right down the middle, maybe I can affect the trajectory of how the football comes out, the speed at which it comes out, forcing the quarterback a little bit uncomfortable. I think that's harder to do off the edges. I know it's a short edge, but I think it's harder to do off the edges, especially if a guy's got to turn around and protect the quarterback and then turn around and rush the passer, on the next down. So, I think there's some liabilities there, and that's what I'm trying to gauge is, okay, this guy's a good player, but how big of a liability is he somewhere else, which is, again, none of us know it. And that's why, I'm shocked that, people are aggressively signing all these guys. Maybe they know something I don't know, and good for them if they do. But, and I know some of these guys, played in the old Arena League, but those rules way back then changed and evolved. And I don't know what they're going to evolve to in this new round of, the game is changing. I think the indoor football game, I think it interests people. It'll be interesting to see if the AFL kind of digs their feet in and is like, this is what we're known for. This is our history, and this is what we're doing. Or if they concede a little bit that, we want real DBs out there. We don't want wide receivers covering wide receivers. We want DBs covering wide receivers, or, we don't want offensive guards and tackles rushing against, guards and tackles. We want, specialized, we want Dwight Freeney going up against the future NFL, tackle. That's what we want, and that's not what the rules provide right now, which again is unique to me in wanting to put the best fan, maybe the fans just don't care. I don't know. But I mean, if you really wanted the best possible fan experience, I mean, why would you not specialize a little bit? You can go find some freaks out there that were great, pass rushers in college. You really want this game to be special, go put those guys on the field, but the fact is now if you do and you got to turn around, they got to protect the passer, after a turnover or a touchdown, now you have a guy that's going to get exposed, pretty quickly. So, that's kind of where I'm at least.
No, that's a valid point. Ironman football makes for some interesting compromises if you're looking at it that way, for sure.
Yeah.
So speaking of alternatives, to the NFL, trying to get players there, you've been able to sit back and kind of watch the evolution of NFL alternatives here. I mean, in the past couple seasons, we've had the XFL, the USFL, the AFL's coming back this season. We had the CIF, the AIF, all these different leagues. What have you kind of used to draw players to the AFL over some of these other options that they maybe have?
First of all, I think it's great. And that's what, we talked in the, the pre-show about, so much hatred for certain leagues. Why? I mean, it's opportunities. Why would you not want as many opportunities? Why does one have to be better than the other? Why can't there just be opportunities for guys to play? And why can't we want everyone to be successful? That just blows me away. Back when the AFL was cooking and it was, the best show on turf. It was, if a guy didn't get into the NFL, he played in the AFL. If a guy got let go in the NFL, he dropped down and either tried to hang on a couple more years or took a sabbatical in the AFL and then got another shot maybe with another team. I think the USFL has kind of taken the place of that, and the XFL. I hope they merge because I think they've got two viable, or not, I think they have two okay business models that I don't know are sustainable by themselves. I think if you combine them and the sponsorships can grow stronger and improve the business model a little bit, I think it's something that maybe is sustainable. The only thing that I don't like is from what I'm hearing, at least, is they potentially have to get rid of 4 teams if they merge, which again is taking opportunities. But I hope that it sticks around, and I think that has displaced the AFL or even indoor football in general from being that thing that it used to be, and that's okay. That's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just, it is what it is. The CFL is its own thing as well, but there's limited opportunities for Americans. So there's nothing wrong with it. It's just, it's not maybe a realistic goal. It might be harder in some ways to get into than the NFL is as an American. So I hope the USFL and the XFL merge and stick around. I hope the AIF does great. I hope the IFL does great. I hope the AFL does great. Why would you want to limit opportunities for young people to play football? What's their alternative? Some of these guys, there's 2 ways that I look at it. There's some guys that are just ambitious and they're just, I'm going to go wherever I got to go in the country to continue to generate film against good players and hopefully I get my shot. Or if you're in a big city of sorts, let's say, Dallas, and you have an opportunity to play for the IFL team, right outside of Dallas, and you know what, hey, I got a good job. It's after hours, it doesn't pay great, but it's extra money. Hell, I'm going to play football as long as I can until somebody tells me that I can't. and I'll use that money to take my girlfriend on vacation. You know, there's that kind of person that's out there too. But why can't they both be good? You know, why can't the AIF guys, you know, be successful and have their own product, whatever they choose it to be? Why can't the IFL, who seems to have a, you know, pretty established, you know, product and seems viable and seems like it's doing, why can't that be its own thing and be good too? Why, you know, why does one have to be great and one have to be trash? Why can't they both be good? You know, and that's what I'm hoping for. And I hope that as the AFL unfolds, and I do think, you know, as I look at it and the more I learn, what I read the other day about the Chicago Rush. You know, I went to a Chicago Rush game when I was in Chicago, and, you know, it was right downtown and in the heart of everything. I think what I read the other day is maybe they're playing in Rockford. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Illinois, but Rockford ain't Chicago. It ain't even close to Chicago. I mean, it's relatively close. It's probably an hour and 15 minutes, but they're not necessarily connected. You know, it's not even like a suburb. It's its own city. And again, they have, you know, 100,000 people up there up on the Wisconsin border. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I don't even care if they call them the Chicago Rush. That doesn't bother me at all. But I do think, as I look at it, you know, the Seattle team's in Everett. It ain't in Seattle. It's in a suburb. You know, the Oregon team's not in Portland. It's in Salem. It's down south. You know, and as I learn, you know, I've heard some of the numbers that are coming out from some of these bigger cities, and even in the IFL, you know, people are like, well, you know, the IFL is so good. It's so this, it's so that. And, you know, it's in big cities, so it's better than yours. Yeah, I guess if you want to pay $25,000 to $50,000 a night to rent your arena, and because it's so expensive, you have to practice at a high school outside in God knows what weather. You know, we practice in our arena every night. You know, where we play is where we practice. You know, our arena doesn't cost anywhere near that. But I'm going to guess Everett, Rockford, and some of these other places, and they're taking these these historic names, which is great. I think that's great. But putting them in maybe more affordable places is pretty smart. I think if you're in downtown Chicago, do you draw more fans than you do in Rockford? I don't know. I guess we'll all find out. But I think it generates more of a sustainable business model. The question is, does it hurt you as far as, you know, maybe getting into some of the big pockets of places in Chicago because you're not actually in Chicago? I don't know. Those are things that everyone will find out. But I am intrigued the direction that the business model is going, you know, for the league. And I hope that it's successful, and I hope that it's sustainable, and I hope everybody's sustainable. I hope they add more. I hope the AIF gets 5 more teams next year. I hope the IFL gets whatever number they want to get to. I hope they get it. I hope the AFL, you know, 24, I think, is the number they want to get to. And I mean, good for everybody. I mean, there's enough players out there. No one will ever run out of players that want to do this. That's the thing. There's so many guys that we're turning away that want to do it. Doesn't mean they're good enough. It just means that they want to do it. That will never be an issue, is finding enough guys to do it. The biggest thing is can we do it? Is it a sustainable financial model? And are we doing the players justice? You know, and that's the only argument I would make against some of the leagues is, and I get why. I'm not arguing either side. Again, I'm devil's advocate. I'm right. I'm Switzerland. I'm right in the middle of this whole thing because I'm not heavily involved one way or the other, but I understand why the players get paid what they get paid in these leagues, which is almost nothing. You know, but at what point is the risk versus the reward? I mean, there's got to be players that are losing money on a weekly basis by doing this. I mean, it's costing them money to be doing this. You know, in some of the other leagues, and that's where I think if we can hone in our business model and make it successful. And you know, I've even, you know, not to get too deep into my recruiting pitch, because it's, you know, it's been highly successful. But, you know, some of the IFL guys that I've talked to, you know, they're like, Coach, it's, you know, it's hard. You know, they put us, you know, yes, they give us housing. It's 30 minutes away from the arena. So we got to drive 30 minutes every single day. We're practicing at a high school. It's 30 minutes in the other direction. So we spend, you know, an hour and a half on the road every day just to go to practice and go to games, and, you know, paying for gas and not having meals and, you know, not being in control of, you know, where they're going to put you. And maybe it's not nice enough. Maybe it's not clean enough. But, you know, all the things that it could go wrong. It's far from a perfect product anywhere, and every place has its own unique struggles. But what I've been telling our guys here is, look, here's what you're going to make. It's, not a little bit more than you're making. It's a lot more than you're making. Okay, and we're talking about a 3.5 month commitment. Okay, so everybody's got their own financial situation. Okay, you got a rent or mortgage, whatever it is that you got to put food in your mouth. You got to put gas in your car. You got to pay for your car. You got to pay for the insurance on your car. You got a cell phone bill. Everybody's got issues. Okay, come to Dodge City for 3.5 months, and let's call it a financial decision for yourself. Okay, and let's assume that you can maybe get out of your rental contract, and that's not going to cost you money. Okay, but what if you came here and you can make X amount of dollars just playing football? Okay, and now you can make a business decision for yourself. Do I want to work 1 day a week, 3 days a week, 5 days a week, and do whatever it is that you choose to do? Because you can do it here. There's jobs everywhere here, and you can work as little or as much as you want to. But let's assume that you took a little part-time job and you were working 3 days a week, and you had a chance to make 15 to 20 grand in the 3.5 months that you're here, plus the money that you're making in football. If a guy had a chance to do that, okay, and didn't have a lot of outside bills, okay, because now your housing's paid for while you're here, your meals will be paid for while you're in camp, some of your meals will be paid for during the season, okay, it's basically like calling a timeout. Let's say you're 24 years old, you're calling a timeout on life, okay, I'm gonna call a timeout on life. I'm gonna go play football for 3.5 months. I'm gonna leave there. I'm going to make a commitment that I'm going to bust my butt to do everything I can in football, but I'm just going to go ahead and suck it up, and I'm going to grind for 3.5 months, and I'm going to go try to put 30 grand in my pocket, okay, in 3.5 months, and I'm going to walk away with almost all of that cash because I have very little out-of-pocket costs while I'm there. Go put a down payment on a house. Go buy yourself a new car. Go start life after that if the football thing doesn't link. But the thing is, if you don't come here, okay, let's say you do go to one of these other leagues that aren't paying as well, and that's not a knock on. I'm pointing out facts. If you go there, are you calling that same timeout on life? I don't think you are. I got the numbers and statistics to back it up. So that's been one of my pitches to people, and again, not to put my game out there in the streets for people that I think's been successful, because they may turn around and use the same pitch, but I'm talking about. Let's make a run at this thing. Playing football for a lot longer than let's put you back in outdoor football. But man, let's put a whole bunch of money in your pocket that some of it's related to football and some of it's not here while we're doing it.
So kind of following up on that idea, how do you go about recruiting players? I see a lot of coaches kind of Instagram DM, Facebook DM. You strike me as more of an email, LinkedIn type of guy. When you send players messages, what do you kind of say to them, and how do you hope to get that process quickly? Like when you contact the player, do you hope to sign them within 24 hours, or do you have a time frame that you aim for?
No, so I'm not a time frame guy. I'm not a LinkedIn guy either, but I almost feel like that's not a compliment. Anyway, I'm just playing. No, any way I can get a hold of them is how I get a hold of them. Some it's through common people. The thing is, the cool part about junior college is, football's a networking game. And I hated networking. That just wasn't my thing. So the cool part about being a junior college head coach that was, had really good players is I didn't ever have to leave my office and go hang out, try to befriend people. They always came to me. You're talking about during the bye weeks in the fall. Having 80 Division I football coaches come through your office through, a month and a half span. And then during spring ball, once they finish their early spring ball, later part of April, coming through here and just people pouring through the doors. There was 4 straight years that we had the number 1 recruit in the country. We had Mark Thompson, the running back, went to Florida. He was the number 1 running back in the nation. We had Gary Johnson and Marquise Blair, who were they were 2 of the top 5 national recruits in the country, and they were the number 1 and number 2 linebackers in the country. And then we had Lakia Henry, who was the number 1 linebacker in the country, went on to play at Ole Miss and played in the XFL last year. We had guys pouring through the door for those guys. So I know a lot of people at a lot of different places. So some of it has been through contacting them directly. I don't like the agent aspect of it, especially from, especially when I'm thinking here when I took the job that I'm a CIF guy. And I'm like, man, you need an agent for me to pay you $220? This is crazy. Like, let's talk to each other. I don't need to talk to your agent. I got nothing for him, and he's got nothing for me. So for me, it's getting a hold of Desmond. I went to Daquan. Daquan got a hold of him within 30 minutes for me. Everyone has been different. I started with former players, and I've had thousands of them, but it was narrowing down to guys again that project, guys that were great people while they were here. They're good human beings, and guys that I felt it necessary. I've told everyone that I've talked to, this is Dodge City. It's not Disneyland. But there's a reason that people are choosing, that have been here, are choosing to come back here, and they have options to go anywhere they want to go, and they're choosing to come back to Dodge City. Well, part of that is it's not because of this place. It's because they know what they're getting from me. They know how they're going to be treated here. They know I'm going to put them first. They know that I'm going to do everything in my power to help them be successful. They know I'm not a con man. They know I'm not going to lie to them. Everything that I say it's going to be, and it's not going to be worse. And if something's not up to what I said it's going to be, they know I'm going to find a way to fix it and make it right. So for targeting the former players, it was, okay, that guy was here. He likes Dodge City. He's willing to come back. I think he projects, maybe he didn't have a wow factor. Maybe he didn't have a wow factor at the 4-year level. Damian Kermit is a great example. Damian had a bunch of offers. He chose to go to Grambling. He did well at Grambling, and then he ended up leaving and went somewhere else. Damian's a guy that on his pro day ran 4.2 something electronic. Like, he's a freak of nature. Like, he's not just some guy. He's one of the 5 fastest kids I've ever seen in person. So hopefully that, I look at, as much as I talked about being long on the front of the defense, on the back, 4.6 is plenty fast. I don't want to be 4.6. Why would I want to be 4.6 if I could be 4.3? So if I can take a couple of those windows away on the back end, you're talking about a game that potentially getting 1 or 2 stops wins you the game. I got to make sure I'm as fast as I can possibly be on the back end and explosive as I can possibly be. Daquan, same thing. Daquan Bailey-Brown's he's a 4.3 guy. Now, he's quicker than he is fast, but he was still a 10-something 100-meter guy out of high school. Super explosive, 38-inch vertical. I mean, guys that generate power, generate speed in short bursts, guys that can take the top off the defense, guys that can close distances on the back end. And that's where I kind of put my energy. And again, how many Division I DBs? Hell, I got 2 guys, in the IFL right now that are both good players, but, they don't run like Damian runs. I mean, I need to surround myself with specific things. So that was kind of how I started targeting people. And, guys that I don't know, it's been everything. Any way that I can get a conversation with them is whatever's necessary. And some guys respond, some guys don't. Maybe some guys didn't even get the message, and that's okay. There's so many guys that you got to get through, get evaluated. I send the same message to 10 guys. If one respond, if I went out of my way to message you, I felt like you could play for me. So the thing is, I don't need all 10 of them. If I get one of them to respond and I can create that relationship and get that guy to sign, I'm one guy closer to being home. So
I like that mentality, because it's definitely a grind trying to get guys, when ultimately you might chase down a profile that they don't even get on anymore, or, however it may be that you're trying to contact these guys. Mm-hmm. But as fans of the AFL and Southwest Kansas in particular, who are some of the big names we can expect to have an immediate impact outside of the 2 you just named?
Honestly, I don't know. There's a couple guys, again, so I get their paperwork back, and I know they'll sign. I don't want to get down that road yet. But Daquan, I think Daquan will be a great indoor player. He's a guy that was an All-American, kick returner. He was an All-American wide receiver in junior college. He went to Southern Miss. I mean, he's got film playing against Alabama and whatever. But then he went to West Florida. They moved him. He played some corner his senior year, and that was one of the big, one of the big guys that I wanted to get early, because I was confident he could play on both sides and not be a fish out of water. I almost think there's going to be a learning curve for him and some of the high motion stuff because he's so fast. I don't know that, some of those he's going to have to learn how to slow himself down a little bit, some of those breaking points. And, when he starts getting on the toes of some of those safeties. Hunter Rison is, a guy with an incredible catch radius. Obviously his dad's, famous, but, he was a 4-star recruit coming out of high school. He started as a freshman at Michigan State, caught, 24 passes, whatever he caught. But I think he'll be a guy because he's, if you spend 5 minutes talking to him, highly motivated, highly intelligent, guy that I think really will do well, has played in the outdoor game, has ambitions he got caught up in a numbers game there, and that's okay. And he's not mad at anybody about it. He just, he wants to go back outside and realizes that this is probably his way to do it. We've got another guy that's just like him who led the IFL in receptions, yards, touchdowns, everything. That one we haven't released yet. That one we'll get to at some other time. We'll sign another quarterback too besides Caden at some point in time. I don't know what we're going to get out of Caden long term. I hope for every one of these guys, and this is a weird thing to say, I hope I get one season out of them and never see him again. Wouldn't that be like, the perfect thing? Kills, my work exponentially goes up, but I've told every one of them, I go, if I told you that I had a 2-year contract for you and you told me yes, I would unrecruit you. Like, don't want to come back here. Don't want to play in the AFL for 2 years. If you're not ambitious and don't have bigger goals, then this isn't for you, at least at this place. And I can't speak for other franchises on how they're operating, but I would probably think we're more unique in that aspect of some people maybe that are trying to build something maybe longer term. And that's not a knock on them either. Like I said, there's a million ways to do this thing, but I think for the way that I'm doing it and for my personal circumstances for the franchise, I hope I get a lot of 1-year guys, because if I'm turning guys over that fast that are going somewhere else and getting an opportunity, that means we're on the right track of doing something, but it also means that, that we're recruiting the right guys and we're doing right by them and giving those opportunities. Defensively, I don't know, because I don't even know what the substitution rules are going to be yet. I think Caden will play well anywhere you put him. He's a survivor. He's a tough kid. But we do have more skill guys that we'll get to. I just can't talk about them right now. Same with a couple of the offensive linemen. I wish I had more information. But I do feel really good that we've got, 4 wide receivers in the boat right now. We've got 4, potentially, 5 offensive linemen. We signed Jalen Pickle as one of our first guys. Jalen grew up about 15 minutes away. So getting him to come back to town, because he's not actually living around here, was a challenge in the recruiting process of convincing him to come back here. Luckily, his mom's about 15 minutes away, so that does help a little bit. He's got a good job, so we're trying to get him transferred. He's a guy that could make a ton of money while he's here because he does have a good job. But we've got film of him rushing. He's a 3-year starter at Kansas State at defensive tackle. They moved him out to defensive end. Again, I don't know if he's going to have to turn around and protect the passer after he rushes the passer. That's still to be determined, but I feel confident he could play in the nose. I feel confident he could play end. I feel confident under those rules that he could turn around and protect the passer because he's big, he's long, he's strong, he's aggressive, highly intelligent. It was a really good signee for us, and a guy that's a proven commodity on a not just his last football game of his career was against Alabama on New Year's Eve. So he's not just he didn't play at some low level podunk place. He was playing against the best of the best. So
Coach, I find it really interesting you had the opportunity to coach one of our favorite players, Mark Thompson, in junior college. How with Mark, when you coached him, I know he ran into some issues throughout his career, but now he's in the USFL. He's dominating. Do you think we'll ever see him in the NFL one day?
I talked to him not too long ago. I'm sure I don't know how he's not right now. I'm not saying that the guys that are in the NFL aren't qualified, but how do you not take a flyer on that guy? A few years ago he was with the Lions and he led the preseason in rushing and I get it. He doesn't look like a lot of NFL guys. The NFL is a body type league. Throw Derrick Henry out the window and throw a few other guys out the window, but they are they are a 5'9" to 6 foot running back league that's, 205 to 225 pounds. I get it. Low center of gravity, more durability. Don't necessarily have to be fast. I get it. He doesn't fit into that mold. But I mean, he's a giant human that has, at every level that he's been at, has been successful. He's got, track speed. He catches the ball well. He blocks well. If you knew, you could Google some of the dumb things that he's done, throughout his life. But if you knew him and you talked to him, that's not who he is. He's a good dude with, pretty good head on his shoulders. And obviously, you can look at him and see that he's not lazy. He's a hardworking guy. And so I'm shocked that he's not. I hope that he gets an opportunity in the NFL, because he's proven everything that he can prove everywhere else besides the NFL. He probably shouldn't have picked Florida. And that was, probably his biggest regret, the last time I talked to him. And, but he's 20 years old, and, Florida comes calling. And at the time they were doing well. And he was, I want to say Alabama was in on him quite a bit. We had a string there for 4 years straight that Alabama had offered one of our guys. So one of the funny stories is he used to FaceTime, Nick Saban FaceTime about once a week, and, talk to a guy. So that would always be in my office. And one morning I was getting ready to go to work, and I used to take my daughter to daycare before I'd go to work. And I would give her my iPad to kill time while I was jumping in the shower real fast, and she'd sit in the bed, and I heard my FaceTime going off. And I was like, oh man, that's not an incoming call. She was calling somebody. And I run out there, and my daughter's at the time, maybe 2, maybe even 3 at the time. And she's FaceTiming, Nick Saban in my bed. And I was like, oh my God. So I hung up. And it wasn't his direct line. I'm sure it was just an Alabama football, iPad. It wasn't like probably he was going to answer, but yeah. So, Mark's the guy that I didn't even know you guys even knew who he was and what have you, but he was, he was a good football player. He, rough freshman year, took a little bit to get him acclimated. And, he was a guy that was so big and strong, almost to his own detriment. His first year, God, he fumbled like 8 times, and he wasn't even our starter. There'd be games he'd fumble on the first carry of the game that we put him in. And so I'd pull him out, because I was like, man, I don't know which Mark showed up today. But we just did so much work in the off season and kind of, put the standard out there of what he needed to meet. And, he was just a monster his sophomore year. We had a good, his freshman year too. We started 5 freshmen on the offensive line. So that next year we had 5 sophomores. We had a really good quarterback. We had our 2 outside receivers were both 6'6". One was Jeff George, who went to University of Tennessee. The other one was Justin McGinnis, who went to Arkansas State, who was the number 6 pick in the CFL draft, who's still playing in the CFL today. He was Canadian. He had a couple of NFL workouts, but that was a really good group of people. Quan Draco was on that team, who I know you guys know. Draco just signed with the Iowa Rampage team and had been here with Storm for a little bit. Gary Johnson was on that team. Marquise Blair was on that team. We might have had 6 NFL guys on that team. So it was fun time to be a coach. You get a lot of credit for a lot of stuff that other guys are doing. It's great.
Well, Coach, we really appreciate your time today. I had a great time hearing from you, and I'm all in on the Southwest Kansas Storm in 2024. I think it's an organization in the right direction. I can't wait to talk to you here soon.
Absolutely. Anytime, guy. I told you earlier, I'm an open book. Like I said, I got nothing to hide. I'm not secretive about anything we're doing. I'm up front. I'm the most transparent person you would probably ever run into, especially when it comes to this, because like I said, I'm in it for what I'm in it for, and I already explained that. And I just want, and this sounds cliche, I want everyone to be successful. If these opportunities were around when I finished playing college football, the opportunities that I would have had would have been, I might have even looked at, playing a couple more years, after if some of these opportunities had been around. So if there's other coaches involved, fans involved, people running random Facebook pages, let's all get on the same team. Let's root for everybody to be successful. And it's the best thing possible for these young people to have these opportunities and let them play football as long as they can. And let's figure out how to get them paid too.
I love that. I love that. Real quick before we let you get out of here, is there anybody you want to shout out or anything like that?
Yeah, my wife. I don't know if she'll get this far. We've been on the air for quite a while. I don't know if she'll get to the hour and 24 mark, but for her, being on board with this decision, we've been our 12-year-old that's got travel baseball all summer, and so that's something we've been doing. Originally when I got into this, I was like, CIF March to maybe Memorial Day. That's a pretty good time. It's cold here. I'm not out in the lake and doing anything. And then all of a sudden it's AFL and my summer is just gone. And I was like, what did I get myself into? But having her on board, and, I talked to my 12-year-old and said, hey, look, I'm probably not coaching baseball. And he was like, but do I get to come to practice? And I'm like, oh yeah, you can be around the players all the time. He's like, yeah, I'm in, go coach football. I'll go play baseball, and when I'm not there, I'll be at practice running routes with the guys and trying to cover them. And so he thinks it's the greatest thing ever. He's like, oh, my God, you signed Caden, and you signed Hunter Rison, and you signed all these guys. And, my 3-year-old, he was sitting on the couch this morning with his Chiefs helmet on and, watching the game and, from Germany. And people are like, man, you force your kids. I was like, I don't force my kids to do anything. He just loves football. And so this is, I think, if my dad was a football coach too and a high school football coach, so I loved being around. When I was 7 and 8 and I was a ball boy for the high school, I looked up to those guys like they were NFL players. I didn't know any better. And my kids are fortunate enough that they're going to get to be around, when they were in junior college or when I was coaching junior college, they got to be around guys that did go on to play in the NFL and got to watch those guys on TV. And, Johnny Holton, who played for, the Raiders and the Steelers. My kids got to know Johnny and Mike Thomas, who played for me here and then went on to play for the Rams and the Bengals forever. Getting a chance to go watch them and them getting us tickets to games and getting to meet some of the players. And, those are things that I never had as a kid, and being able to provide those things for my kids is awesome. And being able to do this differently than the junior college level is, I think it'd be one of the coolest things ever for my kids, and ultimately it's my wife that's allowing all of this to even go on. So for sure, I want to shout out to her, and for sure, I want to shout out to all the people at the Storm that are behind the scenes trying to make this thing happen. It takes a village to make this thing work, as you guys probably know better than anybody else. Being as involved as you guys are. We have a great ownership group. They really do want to do well. I think they are starting to understand, just let the football people do the football people, and we'll figure out behind the scenes. And if we both do a good job at our thing, then we'll both sit here at the top and enjoy the experience together. And, everything from our GM to our sales team and everybody's excited about where this is going. I think not only from a football standpoint, from a firm franchise standpoint. So the excitement around here and the buzz around here is pretty cool to see and be involved with. And honestly, shout out to you guys. You guys are, turning a hobby into a business and giving exposure to, all these people and all these different coaches and all these different players and giving them a platform. Again, why can't we all win? You know what I'm saying? It doesn't matter. Give people a voice, and we're giving as a franchise, we're giving guys a platform. You guys through through media opportunities are giving guys a platform, and it's good. Can't imagine guys having many opportunities outside of what you guys are doing that are out there to get their voice heard for as little or as long as you guys allow them to. And, that's just, regardless of who you are and even how many voices that you reach or eyeballs or ears that you reach, your moment in the sun is pretty cool. And those guys feel special while you're doing this for them. And again, I think it's mutually beneficial to everybody. You guys are trying to build a business and they're trying to market themselves, and, everybody wins. Go for it.
100%. Thank you. That means a lot to us. I'm sure Chris feels the same. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you, Mrs. Thomas, for making all of this happen. We appreciate that. Definitely we'll have to have you back hopefully later on this season or closer to when the season kicks off. But definitely appreciate your time. Have a great rest of your day. Enjoy the rest of the day of the football.
Same guys. Appreciate you.
Absolutely.
I'm a game changer. I'm a game changer.